Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 24 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in the class, we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot simpler if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be teaching you a new component. And that component is a push button switch. It's about the easiest thing that you could imagine. The switch is either on or the switch is off. You've either pressed the button down or you have not pressed the button down. So it's a real simple little device, but actually programming it takes a little bit of thought. Now, it's very straightforward to do, but you got to kind of think through it. And believe it or not, as you're working with the little on-off switch, it sometimes can be something that people struggle with a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a little bit. Then I'll give you a homework assignment, and then next week I'll show you my solution to the homework assignment. But in today's lesson, just kind of go with it. Just sort of follow along with me, and then I'll give you a homework assignment at the end of the lesson. Sound good? I hope it does. So let's see here. What do we need to do? We need to get in our, I guess I need to get out of your way here to begin with. And then what you want to do is you want to get in your Sunfounder kit. Okay, and there is a goodie bag here, right? Your little goodie bag. And what you want to do is you want to get out this switch. And I've already taken mine out. So let me show you what I have here. Okay, this switch. Okay, it's this one. You see, it's about 1 centimeter on a side. Let me put it down here so you can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, you see this switch is in your goodie bag. And then also you will find another little bag, and that other little bag has got some little colored buttons. And what I did was I took the blue colored button out. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the little colored cap and we're going to press it on top of the switch. Okay, we're going to get it lined up, and then we're going to put it on there, and then we're going to fight with it a little bit, but get it on there. Boom. Okay, now we have a bright blue, or maybe you used a different color, a bright blue little switch, and now you can see that you can press the switch down or let it up, and it kind of goes clickety-click when you do that. Now, I need to show you how this switch works, and what I should show you is the switching action happens between the two pins that are not pointed towards each other. So what I want you to see, I want you to see this, okay? Do you see how this is sort of pointed back towards this? It's kind of like they're curved. That is one wire. That one wire is connected to itself. This and this are connected together. If I rotate it 180 degrees, this and this are one wire, and those are connected to each other. So it's always a short between here and here because that's one wire. And then it is a short between here and here, and that is one wire. The switching action happens between here and here. So if that button is up, this is not connected to that. If the button is closed, this is connected to that. Now, if I do a 180 again, same thing over here. These two are not connected together. If I press the button, that one is connected to that one. So hopefully that makes sense. And let's go ahead and let's just plug this in. And you see when I jump over that center trench, what do I want when I jump over that center trench? That and that are pointed towards each other. So we want to put it in like that. We do not want to put it in like that. In fact, I think it won't even fit that way. So these two that are pointing towards each other, those are going to jump over the trench. And now what I have here is I have a neat little switch that I can put in my project. But if we want this thing to act as an on-off switch, if we want this thing to act like an on-off switch, we got to do a little head scratching, okay? We've got to do a little head scratching. So now let me come over here. Let me see if I can get that straight. There, that's good. It moved. Let's get it straight. Let's get it straight. Oh my goodness, I need some more tape on the bottom. I am not going to think about how crooked that is. I'm not going to think about how crooked that is. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. So we're going to come here and we are going to come over here to the old sketchpad view. Let me see if I can get my sketchpad up. Let's see if we can get the sketchpad up here. There it is. Okay. Now let's think, give it a second. It'll come back. There it is. Okay. Let's think about that switch. Okay. Let's think about that switch. So what I have is I've got this like this. And so that's one leg. And then I have this other leg. And then I've got the button up here, and this is a wire, and then this is the little button like this. And when it is like that, this is not connected to this. So this switch is off. Okay, but now let's come over here and let's draw it again. Okay, and let's imagine that I pushed the button down. When I push the button down, that wire comes down and it connects it, and then this is connected to this. This switch is on. Okay, so that switch is off, this switch is on. But now how do I detect if the switch is on or off? Well, I have to put a voltage to it. And to put the voltage to it, I have to use a pull-up resistor. And what a pull-up resistor is, a pull-up resistor connects between one of the legs and 5 volts. And so let's draw that, and then let's think a little bit about it. Okay, so I'm going to come here, and I'm going to have that bottom leg. Okay, and then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to have that other leg. Okay, and then I'm going to have my switch. Let's just have it off for right now. Off. Okay, it's not pressed down. Now, what was I going to put? I was going to put a pull-up resistor, and we'll use about a 10K. That's just kind of traditional. What does 10K mean? K means 1,000, so that's 10,000. And if you look in your kit, you've got a 10,000 ohm resistor. It's a little packet, and it's labeled 10K, so you'll want to use that. And then I come over here, and I hook this to the 5 volts on the Arduino. Now, if that one's to 5 volts, we're making a little bit of a circuit here. So this one over here is going to come to what? It's going to come to GND, ground. All right. Now, where do we make our measurement? We make our measurement here. And this, let's just go to one of the digital pins and we'll make a measurement with the digital pin. Let's say that I am going to use, I want to use the same one that I used a while ago. So let me see, I'm going to use pin 2. Okay, and now this is where I am going to read voltage. So now, while the switch is off, okay, while the switch is off, if I read pin 2, what would pin 2 see? Well, is there any current flowing through that 10,000 ohm resistor? No, because there's no place for the current to go. Why? The switch is off, so there is no current. If there is no current, is there any voltage drop across the resistor? No, there's no voltage drop across the resistor, because voltage drop is current times resistance, and even though the resistance is 10,000, the current is what? It's 0. So the voltage drop across the 10K resistor is what? 0. And so what does pin 2 see? Pin 2 sees 5 volts. So if it's off, what would pin 2 read? It would read 5 volts. And in the world of digital, that's a what? That is a 1. Okay, so this is kind of strange, but you see, if the switch is off, you are going to read a 1 because you're going to see that 5 volts. Well, let's think about the other case. Okay, let's come in this time. Okay, we're drawing it again. Who is our friend? Our friend is the 10,000 ohm, 10K ohm. I should put the ohm there too. 10K ohm coming to what? Coming to the 5 volts. And then where am I reading? I'm reading at that pin, at that leg of the switch, and I'm reading that at pin 2 of the Arduino. And this time I'm going to press the button down, and now this is connected. Okay, it's connected. Now, when it's connected, that 5 volts, it is going to drive current from the 5 volts over to the ground, and it's going to go right through that little circuit. Now, what happens across the 10K resistor? Well, the voltage is going to drop across that 10K resistor. It's going to drop across that 10K resistor, and what is pin 2 going to see? It is going to see G and D. And you can see that pin 2 is now connected right directly to what? It's connected to ground, and so it is going to see 0 volts. Okay, and what is that going to be? That is when the switch is on, the pin 2 is going to see 0 volts, and that is going to be reported as a 0. All right, so when the switch is off, we're not touching it, we will read a 1. When we press it and it is on, we will read a 0. And that bothers some people because they say, well, if you're not touching the switch, it should be off, should be a 0. No, off is what the circuit, it's what the circuit is doing. And so in this case, while that switch is off, we will read a 1. When we press the button, we will read a 0. So what do we need to do now? We need to go in and we need to hook this circuit up. Let me draw it again here. Okay, so these are the 2 legs of the switch. One leg needs to go to ground, and the other leg needs to go between a 10K ohm resistor, which you get from your kit, and then 5 volts on the Arduino. Then this leg here, right here, this leg of the switch, that is going to go over to pin 2 on the Arduino. Okay, so let's see if we can hook that thing up. And guys, go back and watch this again, because man, I was a University of Texas sophomore or junior electrical engineering student, and they were explaining the pull-up resistors, just like, I don't even understand, I don't need to know that. And I kind of skipped over it, and I was confused about it for years. Don't skip over it. Go back and make sure that you understand what I just told you, because it's kind of important. We're going to be using this switch a lot. So this is the switch, okay? And what are the pins that we're working with? We're working with this one and this one. Right now, the switch is off. If I press it down, it becomes on, and those 2 are now connected together. Well, this left one, what did we want to do with the left one? Go back and look at your picture. We wanted to ground it. So I'm going to take one of these little Bojack wires, link down in the description if you guys don't have the Bojack wires yet. And I want to take that left pin and I want to connect it to my ground rail. So I'm going to come to my ground rail to the left pin. Okay, this is in that same column, and so this is now connected to my ground rail. Now, what did I want to do over here with the right pin? Well, I wanted to go through a 10K resistor, which I happen to have here. So that leg, that right leg, I've got this 10K resistor in the same column as that right leg. Okay, that's what we wanted to do. And then the top of the resistor, what did we want to do? We wanted to connect that to 5 volts. And so I will connect that one to my 5-volt rail. And I'm going to have to move it over by 1 because I kind of have that blank spot down there. So let's try it again. I've got the left leg, right? I've got the left leg connected to the right pin of the button. You see that? And now over here, the other leg of the resistor, we said we wanted to go to the power rail. So you see, this one is going to this row, the red row, the plus row, and then this side over here is going to the ground. Okay, now that is all most excellent. But what did we say? We also, this leg, we wanted to go to pin 2. We wanted to go to pin 2 on the Arduino because that's where we're going to be reading. We're going to be reading from this one. And that is going to come over here to digital pin 2. Okay. Do you see that? Digital pin 2. Okay, that is all hooked up. But what do we need to do? Well, I need to make this rail, I need to actually make it 5 volts. So I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to come over to the 5 volt. You see the 5 volt pin? I'm coming over to the 5 volt pin. I also need to what? I also need to actually make this bottom row, that negative, I need to make it a ground. So I'm going to come over with my black wire, and I'm going to connect the black wire there to G and D. Now what I have is this is hooked up. This is hooked up exactly like what I showed here, right? This leg goes 2 places to pin 2, and it goes through a 10,000 ohm resistor to 5 volts. This pin goes to ground. So I have got that. All right, so now that we have that, let's come back over to our code view. Okay, let's come back over to our code view here. And now let's see how I could make a measurement. And what do I want to measure? I want to measure whether that button is up or down. If it is up, it should read a 1. If it is down, it should read a 0. So we shall begin. We shall begin. Okay, now what do I have? I have this leg of the button. I have it connected to pin 2. So I'm going to need a variable for that, and so I'm going to say int, and it's going to be butt pin because that's easier to say than button pin, easier to type every time, and that's connected to pin 2. Boom, look at that. Now what else do I have? I might want to print something, so let me set up a baud rate, and so that baud rate is going to be 115 200. But what do I need to do? I need to tell it it is an int, like that. And then also, before I do the BR, I think what I want to do is I'm going to be reading from that pin 2, so I need a variable to put that reading into. So I'm going to call that the butt valve for the value that I'm reading from the button. And I'm not going to give it a value. Why? Because I'm going to read it, right? I'm going to read it. So I'm not going to assign it to anything. So that looks pretty good. Now down in my void setup, I'm going to be talking to the serial monitor. So I'm going to do a serial.begin, and then what is it? BR, that I set it up at 115 200. Always make sure that you're the same down here as you are up here. Okay, now I'm also going to be reading from pin 2. I'm going to be reading from pin 2, right? I'm going to be reading from pin 2. So this time when I do my pin mode, we haven't done this before on one of those digital pins. Which pin am I using? The butt pin. And what is it going to be? It's going to be an input this time because I'm not going to be writing to it. I'm going to be reading from it. So that pin mode, on that digital pin is an input. Realize all the other times that we were using those pins 2 through 13, they were always outputs. We were always writing to them. This time we are going to read from it, if that makes sense. Okay, could it really be that easy? I think I'm going to come down here, and now what do I want to do? I want to read from that pin. So how would I do that? I would say the but value, the but val is going to be equal to digital read. Where am I going to read? I'm going to read the but pin. Okay, like that. Does that look good? Digital read, yeah. You see, before we were doing analog reads with those analog pins, but those digital pins, I can write to them or I can read from them. But when I read from them, they're going to read a 0 or a 1. They're not going to read 0 to 255. That is the analog in pins. If I read from a digital pin, digital knows how many things? 2 things, on or off. It knows zeros, or it knows a 0 or a 1. So I'm going to read the but val, and then I'm going to do then let's see what it is. Let's say serial.println. What am I just going to print? The but val, like that. I was thinking about making a mistake and just deliberately printing but pin, and then you'd be confused. I'm pressing the button, not pressing the button, and it's just printing out a 2. But I'll spare you that little mistake this time. We've got a little bit to go through, so I'll try not to put so many deliberate mistakes in. Now I'm going to do a delay of dt. Let's come up here and define dt. I'll say int dt, and let's just make it like 50 milliseconds, like that. Okay. Now, could it really be that easy? Let's see if we can run it. I already see. I saw it before it gave me the orange. And what did I see before it gave me the orange? I saw it down here like that. So let's try it again. That does not count as an error. That was, oh, now this one does count as an error. Ah, man, I'm skipping my semicolons like a MicroPython guy. Looking good this time. Looking good. Look at that. And boom. Okay, now let's turn on our serial monitor. Okay, now what is it reading? It's reading a 1, because when the button's not pressed, what does that pin 2 sees? It sees the 5 volts, so it reports 5 volts as a 1. Now we come in with our finger and we press it, and boom, I get a 0. Okay, do you see that I am now observing the button push? I'm observing the button push. Okay. So let's just try this. Let's go ahead and just take this a little bit further. Okay, I think we're pretty good on time. So let's come back over here and let's put a resistor. Let's put a resistor in this circuit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a resistor. I'm going to put in an LED. What am I saying? Resistor. I will need a resistor. And I'm putting the long leg to the left. I'm putting the long leg to the left like that. Okay, now I have my old trusty friend, Mr. 1K resistor, and he is going to go from the short leg over some convenient distance. So he's connected to the short leg over some convenient distance, and then the resistor is going to need to be grounded. So I'm going to connect to this convenient ground rail that I already have. And now what am I going to need? I'm going to need a pin for my red. I'm going to need a red pin. I'm looking for a red wire because I like to do some color coding, and I just happened to get lucky and find one there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this red wire, and I'm going to go from the long leg of the LED, and let's come over to GPIO, or to the digital pin 10. So you see, I'm going to be controlling that LED through pin 10, and it's going to come over here to the long leg of the LED, like that. Okay, now let's come back over to our code and let's see if we can put a little snazzy action in here. Okay, let's see if we can kind of get snazzy with this. Okay, so we have this hooked up. So now we're going to come back over to our code view and we're going to see if we can deal with that LED. Well, the first thing is if we have that LED, what we are going to need to do with it is we're going to need to set it up. And so I'm going to say int red LED, and that was equal to, I'll look over there, it was pin 10. Now, I like to check as I put it in, as I go, and that, even though I have OCD, that is not OCD, that's just good programming. Now, if I go back and I check it 5 more times, then that's OCD, but one check, I get a free pass. That's just good programming. So the red LED, no, let's call it red pin. Let's call it red pin. I think that's how we had been doing it, red pin. Now, if we're going to use red pin, we need to do a pin mode. So I'm going to say pin mode, and the pin mode will be what? Red pin. Am I reading from it or am I writing to it? I'm writing it to it, so it would be a, wait for it, output. All right. So what I want you to see is butt pin is an input because we're reading from it, and output and red pin is an output because we're writing to it. Now down here, we're going to read the butt val from the butt pin, then serial.println, we're going to print what that value is. Now let's think. If butt val, don't forget our parentheses, if butt val equal 1, what does that mean? That means the button is not pressed, and that button 2 is seeing the 5 volts. So if it is not pressed, what do we want to do? We want to do a digital write. We want to do a digital write what? To red pin what? We want to take it high? No. If it's a 1, the button isn't pressed, so then that's going to be low. The LED will be off. Okay. Now we come, that's all that we have in that if clause, so we come after the curly, and then we say, well, what if but val equals 0? Well, what that means is the button has been pressed. And if the button has been pressed, here between the open and the closed curly, what do we want to do? We want to do a digital write red pin, and we want to do what with it? We want to take it high because we want to turn the LED on. So now if I press the button, the LED will be on. If I let the button out, the LED will be off. So let's see, let's run this thing. Okay, yep. I put the semicolon inside the silly parentheses like that. Okay, let's try it again. Looking good. Oh man, I said looking good too soon. It looks like I somehow got an extraneous extra close here. So I'm going to get rid of that. Now let's check it. This closes the void loop. Okay. Now this closes this if statement. This closes this if statement. So I think those things balance now. Let's try it. Take a sip of coffee. Now it's actually looking good. Okay, you see it's looking good. It's downloading. And here we are. It's done. Let's take a look here like that. Now, the moment of truth. Let's come and let's watch the serial monitor. You see that 1? That means the button is not pressed. And the LED is what? It's off. Now we come in, hold your breath. Boom! Look at that. The LED is on. The LED is off. The LED is on. The LED is off. Who's your huckleberry, huh? Boom, we got that LED going with that little switch. Okay, so that is pretty neat. We've sort of shown that we can control an LED with the switch. What have we learned? We've learned about pull-up resistors. We've learned how to incorporate a push button switch into our project, and we've demonstrated it by controlling an LED. Okay, now you will have a homework assignment. Okay, you will have a homework assignment, and you do not change your circuit. Your circuit stays the same as it is now. You do not change anything about your circuit. What do you do with your circuit? Leave a comment down below. You don't change it. Okay, because what I want you to do is I want you to change your code. And really, like if you want your light to come on in the room, you don't want to have to stand there and hold your finger on it, right? You want to what? You want to do a button push and have the light come on. And then at your leisure, you want to go back and have a button push and have the light go off. And so to do that, what I want you to see is watch this. Now understand that with the little sleight of hand while I was talking to you, I put a different program down into the Arduino. And so the program we just wrote doesn't do this, but this is what I want you to do. Boom! Look at that. My hands are over here and the LED stays on. Oh, a little bit too bright for you? Will come and boom, it's off. Watch this. If I hold it and let it up, it comes on. If I hold it and let it down, it goes off. Boom. That is a toggle switch. And that is your homework for next week. Now, I got to tell you, you really have to work on this and you really have to think about it. And please don't go look up on the internet and find a solution. You've got to make that connection in your brain. You've got to make it work on your own. You've got to make it work on your own by thinking through it, not copying someone else's solution. Because I'll show you the solution next week, but I don't want you to copy someone's solution. I want you to think through it. And it's kind of funny. It's just a few lines of code. It's not hard to do this really. And you can do it with all the things that I've taught you already. But this is like the first time you see this problem, it tends to be kind of like a really big challenge. Like you might have to work on it for 3 or 4 days before you could really figure out how to do it. And let me tell you, the old toggle switch, that is how people left engineering and left the engineering department and went into home economics or basket weaving or whatever. That this is the little program that just drove people out of engineering. Even though once you see the solution, it's really pretty simple. So I hope you guys will look at this as a challenge, and I hope you will do it without looking at someone else's work. Okay, I hope you'll do it without looking at someone else's work. That is your homework for next week. And never fear, next week I will show you my solution. I hope some of you guys can figure it out on your own. I hope you guys are having as much fun taking this class as I am making it. I always want to give a big thank you to you guys who are standing with me on Patreon. Your support and your encouragement is what is keeping me in the game. You can also help me by giving me a thumbs up, by leaving a comment down below, and then also make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and when you do, ring that bell so you'll get notification when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people thinking like an engineer and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.